Cinephile ASMR, and today we are finally here to talk about Dune Part 2. Can I just say, first and foremost, what a time to be alive. When I make videos, there are certain movies that you just feel so gratified to talk about, so grateful to just exist, and I'm not going to reveal the hand too much of what I think. I'm very grateful to be here. If you are new here and like movies and ASMR, consider subscribing, comment down below what you thought about this movie, and follow me on Letterboxd. I post constantly every movie I review before I review it on here. But without further ado, let's talk about Dune Part 2. The second installation in the Dune franchise behind Denis Villeneuve's mind, directly after Part 1, following Paul Atreides, the man, or by some, the Messiah that is going to unite the planets together and stop the war and the fighting and the division, as he grapples with himself as to whether or not he is that which not only his mother but so many people consider him to be, the Lisan al-Kaib, or just a regular boy fighting for what he feels, seeking revenge and justice for what has been done onto his family. I have a deep love for Denis Villeneuve as a filmmaker. Like so many other people, the man has made masterpieces that are defining moments of the 21st century. You physically do not exist and make movies as good as he has within almost a 10-year time frame with Enemy, Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner, Dunes 1 and 2. It just doesn't happen. That track record is unbelievable. And when I saw Dune Part 1, I was very much enamored by the fact that a movie as big, as expensive as that is made with such creativity and identity. It felt like a film. It felt like Denis Villeneuve. It felt unique and personal, where so many blockbusters didn't. And in 2024, that feels even more true now. As you watch a maestro come behind the camera once again, this feels like his sandbox, no pun intended, in a way that you just don't see. You do not watch filmmakers who have racked up a career like Villeneuve make a movie as grand, as beautiful, as personal as this. And I walked into this theater and I came out, and I think at the end of the day, the one thing that I would say is this really does feel like a moment you need to live in, not one that you can rent in a month or two from now whenever it gets dropped on Max, not in 5 years from now when you check it out just on some sort of whim. This is the kind of thing that you need to live in and experience, because I know that Twitter or the world, the collective hubris, is going to try and tell you this movie's overrated, it's overhyped, the meat writing is just crazy. But I'm just here to remind you that you can love what you love, because this movie is exceptional. This feels like a moment in history, in cinema, language, and the art form that we need to revel in. We need to indulge, because we do not get this. We will never get this. You hear people say that this is the Empire Strikes Back for our generation, and I think this is just going to be the movie we're going to tell our kids in 10, 15, 20 years you had to have been in March of 2024 to really appreciate how incredible it was. It's so difficult to try and tackle specific beginnings of how to review this movie, but I think just starting where you need to, the performances and the ensemble. If you thought Part 1 elevated the source material because of the cast, this takes that and runs with it. Returning characters, Paul, Jessica, the actors that play them were all spectacular. You see a sense of a growth and looming anxiety because of what is unfolding in these characters' lives. The performances, although a direct continuation from Part 1, feel so much deeper and nuanced in how they portray the characters, where these characters start this film and end in the way that it concludes. It feels fully fleshed out, but more importantly, the way that Part 2 elevates everything, the stakes, the world building, the technical elements, the score, the cinematography, direction, acting, comparatively to Part 1, it makes the first part feel like a teaser trailer, a sample, a Costco-sized sample for a meal that you cannot get enough of, but more importantly, a meal that you do not know how you're going to feel with the next bite. There is a sense of melancholy, of blue bleak dread that permeates this entire film. This film does not shy away from getting very cosmic and very introspective for what Paul is dealing with, and I was really worried a movie as big as this, how could Timothée Chalamet undertake something like that? But he frankly gives the performance of his career, or at least one that I feel he hasn't given since Call Me By Your Name, which I think was his best. This feels so much different for someone who has to undertake the massive weight and brevity of a franchise like this. You see the progression of a boy wanting to live his life away from the casts and ideas that these people are putting onto him, but having to confront that very quickly because the world around him is crumbling. But on top of that, this may just be the best looking sci-fi film, big budget blockbuster film to ever exist. I think one of my bigger gripes, which I do have quite a few with part one, is the fact that I think after a while it wears itself a little thin. It is very well shot, but the landscapes and the backgrounds of just nothing but desert kind of just falls into all being one big melting pot. But this movie uses texture and color and vibrancy and different locations to distinguish the houses, the characters, their ideals, and it feels very spiritual. It's like this opportunity for every scene, every shot to be so meticulously crafted. I can't imagine how Greg Fraser ups himself from what I at the time considered to be the greatest looking blockbuster with The Batman. I thought there's no way he can outdo himself. The way that this movie looks, every frame is so worthy of being put on a wall, and while the spectacle, the wide shots where you think this is once in a lifetime, it is those close-ups that has so much texture in the frame, the lighting, the composition, everything culminates for so many of these scenes to just be embedded and ingrained into your mind, and it really is because of the talent behind this movie. But when you find out where the Harkonnens are from, how House Atreides crumbles, the desert, the Siege, the Fremen, it really feels like a world that is so fully realized, from the smallest minute details of how they consume water, to how they survive in the smoldering desert, to how these people become into positions of power, the manipulation. And it's like there is something so at ease as an audience member watching a film that you realize is made by someone who, more than anyone in this entire world, understands the concepts and the project as a whole. Denis Villeneuve will disarm you in seconds. And again, these are A-list talents, from DPs like Greg Fraser, directors and writers like Denis Villeneuve, but also composers like Hans Zimmer, who do not need to state how good they are. They have a laundry list of projects to prove that. But I kid you not, Hans Zimmer gives what I may believe to be his best work, his best pieces conducted and composed since Interstellar. It is so full, but also very primitive, using sounds that you have never been able to hear. And I think that is the biggest thing about Dune Part 2, is whether through visually or texturally, you do not understand that this movie is operating on a different level until you are locked in. You lose a sense of time, the construct of like, is this movie an hour in, 2 hours in? You start to worry, as I do, is this movie going to end? You don't want it to. You have no idea where it's gonna go. And I think on top of the technical feats and marvels that this movie accomplishes, the ensemble, Rebecca Ferguson, Timothée Chalamet, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Zendaya, the chemistry between Paul and Shawnee, the ways that this story progresses, there is like about halfway through a point where this movie switches from being a continuation of Dune Part 1 into something a lot more cosmic, a lot more deep, and it scares you, honestly. It makes you realize, wait, this movie is going in a certain direction. It's like as if the movie is a car you are driving. You're fully operating the vehicle, but when that midpoint hits, the brakes go out, and you keep going faster and faster, and you don't know where the movie is going to go. You embrace it, but it's also just so good to enjoy. And again, you will always hear the most famous quote when it comes to villains: a movie is only as good as the villains in it. And Austin Butler is a freak of nature. It's like he took his role as Elvis Presley and took it up 10 notches, shaved his head, bleached his skin. He is unrecognizable. And it's a lot of work, because it's not just Austin Butler, but Christopher Walken, Florence things they do. These characters you never knew existed if you haven't read the book up until part 2, so you have to continue the characters that were introduced already while making their arcs feel fulfilling, while also introducing and creating new characters in this world. But it does it. I will say, I don't think the movie is perfect. I don't think it is my favorite Denis Villeneuve film. I think there is points towards the last 45 minutes where it kind of does feel a little snapshotty, where I wish you could just hold with the characters for that much longer, because what we're given is incredible. I just wish we got more. And like I said earlier on in this video, take this movie for as good as it is. If you love it, hold on to it, because I know the internet discourse is going to try to convince you otherwise, but nobody is doing it on the level that Denis Villeneuve is, with the amount of reverence and care that he puts into every frame, every character, the level of sincerity that he crafts into his stories about humans and the pursuits for what they want and who they are, the way that's tied in all of his films, that level of humanity, whether through Amy Adams as a linguist to aliens, or Ryan Gosling as a robot finding humanity in himself, or this movie where you see this world so fully realized in how it's so spiritual, finding a young man try to become himself while also not bending to what the world wants him to be. You just do not get storytelling like this, and I love this. It dabbles into so many different tones and ideas. It's bleak but uplifting, hopeful, scary, intense, but also just so vibrant in life and humanity. The world is unbelievably fully realized. People thought at a time that Dune was an unadaptable film, but Denis says, hold my beer, and makes it something immaculate. People are so quick to compare this to Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and the way that that original trilogy works, but I think what distinguishes and differentiates Dune from Star Wars or anything else of this level and density is the way that it cares so much not only about the characters, but it maintains this level of almost religious identity and spirituality. There is this level of femininity between the Bene Gesserits and Rebecca Ferguson's character, and it's like the way this movie pulsates and operates, it has this beating heart to itself, and you will never get it anywhere else. I don't know if the third one will happen. Denis has talked about wanting to do it, but for right now, living in this moment to appreciate a movie that I genuinely think, after all this time, although I have some qualms, I have to give a resounding A+. There is just so many different ways that you can talk about this movie, interpret its themes, and just discuss it with people. I saw it in IMAX as an early screening, and the crowd was palpably just locked in. And the credits rolled and the movie ended. People cheered in a way that felt so guttural, and I think if anything, Dune Part 2 resembles and is indicative that audiences care about well-made movies. People are so quick to discredit the collective for just throwing in and eating anything that is put in their way, but if I'm being so honest with you, whether it be Dune Part 2 or The Batman or so many well-made, bigger budget films, people will eat it up if it's well-made, and this is arguably the best-made film on this scale and budget that we will ever get in our lifetime. I am so excited to rewatch this film. There is so many ways to tackle it. The story, the villains, the escalation, the rising of tension, the way this leaves off and it sets itself up. It does feel like an Empire Strikes Back in structure, but in that same vein as well, it excels as being a second film that makes the first look like small fry, but elevates the source material to new heights. I'm just so grateful to have this movie in existence, to be able to live in a time to fully indulge. You need to see this movie on the biggest screen possible. Take Dune heads, take non-Dune fanatics, get them pilled, because this movie is a treat to behold. But as always, let me know what you thought about Dune Part 2. Let me know who your favorite performances were. I really gotta say, Timothée Chalamet and Rebecca Ferguson transcended. Austin Butler, chef's kiss, Stellan Skarsgård, all these people. We will not get a cast like this, if ever again. Thank you, as always, for watching. I loved this movie, the way it made me feel, the way that it made me feel so present in the moment. I think we need to do more of it. If you love this film, comment down below. I cannot wait for what this series and this franchise has in store. Denis Villeneuve is a maestro, a filmmaker who's transcending the industry by storm. Holy hell, so grateful this exists. I love you guys so very much, but most importantly, remember to take life one frame at a time.